thought they buried you in silence. They thought if they ignored you, misjudged you, underestimated you long enough, you would disappear. But what they failed to realize is a chosen one doesn't vanish in darkness. A chosen one sharpens there. While their mouths ran wild and their egos fed on noise, you stayed hidden, gathering power, perfecting your strike. They mistook your quiet for weakness. They confused your patience for permission. And now they're living in the chaos they once plotted for you. Every trick they pulled, every backhanded move they made, only built a storm bigger than them. Their schemes were not traps for you. They became cages for themselves. You didn't just survive their devilish games. You thrived because of them. And now the very light they tried to snuff out in you shines so fiercely that it scorches their illusions. They stare, stunned, not because you fought louder, but because you rose higher than their gossip, their betrayal, their fear. This isn't just a comeback, it's a takeover. The force of your success terrifies them, because it proves a brutal truth. No amount of plotting can stop what is destined to rise. You are the walking proof that no enemy, no secret jealousy, no silent sabotage has the power to destroy what was forged in storms. So buckle up, chosen ones. What you're about to hear isn't dressed up in pretty words or wrapped in false hope. It's the unfiltered truth about how your elevation becomes their downfall, and why their attempts to block you will always backfire in the end. If you're ready to claim every ounce of the strength you were always meant to walk in, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and join the journey. Remember, the power that built you in silence now haunts the ones who tried to break you. Before moving ahead, let me take a moment to sincerely thank every single one of you who has supported this mission through Super Thanks. Your generosity is not just a gift, it is a living testimony of alignment with a greater calling. It's a sign that your spirit recognizes the battlefield we walk, that you see beyond the surface and stand for something deeper. Every act of support breathes life into this purpose, helping these words reach those who feel hidden, misunderstood, or underestimated. It's not just about growing a channel. It's about fueling a movement of light in a world that often rewards darkness. And because of your heart, the flame burns brighter, the message runs further, and the chosen continue to rise against every weapon formed against. If your soul feels the weight of this truth, if something inside you knows you are called to higher places no matter what enemies tried to design, take a moment now and seal it with faith. Comment 999 below, not because of pressure, but as a quiet and powerful declaration that you are standing in agreement, aligned, protected, and destined for victory. Together we are walking proof that no scheme can silence what was divinely lit. Number 1. Stop letting them love your potential. Guard your presence like gold. They're never in love with who you truly were. They were enchanted by who they thought they could shape you into. They clung to the version of you that was still forming, still questioning, still seeking outside validation. You were easy then, easy to advise, easy to influence, easy to stand beside, because your light hadn't fully caught fire yet. They smiled while you struggled, not because they were proud of your efforts, but because your almost success kept them feeling superior, necessary, and in control. They adored the hunger in your eyes, but feared the moment that hunger would evolve into unstoppable flames. They cheered you on, as long as you stayed chasing, as long as you stayed reaching but never arriving. Your unfinished journey made them feel generous, important, even wise. But the second your spirit snapped into focus, the second you stopped apologizing for your ambition, stopped asking permission to exist, everything shifted. Their encouragement dried up. Their smiles faded into strained nods. The rooms that once welcomed you began to shrink. It wasn't because you wronged them. It was because your growth exposed their stagnation. Your victories whispered to their hidden regrets. Every step you climbed without their help, every goal you crushed without needing their applause, became a silent reminder of what they didn't dare attempt for themselves. You thought they'd clap louder. You thought they'd be proud that you became everything they once said you could be. But instead, they retreated, or worse, stayed close just enough to watch, study, and envy. They were never celebrating your arrival. They were banking on your delay. And now, here you stand, solid, self-possessed, unshakable, no longer the potential project they once found comfort in. You're the living reality of resilience they can't quite look at without flinching. They say you changed, as if it's a betrayal, but the truth is simple. You didn't change. You completed the version of yourself they prayed would stay incomplete. You outgrew the tiny role they assigned you in the script they were writing for their own comfort. You stopped playing background character in someone else's story, and the moment you did, you became a mirror too bright for them to face. They're not clapping because they're proud. They're clapping with their mouths closed because they realize now you were never theirs to mold. You were always destined to be the masterpiece they could never contain. Number 2, never play the underdog. You were the silent threat all along. They painted you as the underdog because it made them feel bigger, safer. They liked to see you as the struggler, the one still finding your way, because it gave them a false sense of superiority. But the truth? You were never beneath them. You were the silent threat wrapped in patience. You were the storm learning how to move without noise. They mistook your observation for weakness, your silence for confusion. But all the while, you were gathering, sharpening, preparing. You never needed to bark to prove your bite. You studied while they celebrated too soon. You built while they slept on you. They didn't realize that the real danger isn't the one who screams for attention. It's the one who moves in silence and strikes when it's least expected. You weren't trying to catch up. You were pacing yourself for a finish line they never even saw coming. Now the ones who once looked down at you from their fake thrones are scrambling. They called you the underdog because it made their egos feel untouchable. But now your success has exposed the lies they told themselves. They realized too late, you were never chasing them. You were building something they couldn't touch, even on their best day. A chosen one doesn't need noise to prove their strength. You let them talk, let them overlook, let them underestimate, and in doing so you walked right past them. Now they feel played, because the silent one they once dismissed has become the force they can no longer ignore. Number 3, refuse to be molded. Not every mentor deserves your blueprint. There will always be people who smile at you like teachers, but secretly move like sculptors. Not to build you, but to shape you into something smaller, something easier to control. They don't guide because they believe in your greatness. They guide because they fear it. They see the raw, unfiltered brilliance in you, and instead of helping you sharpen it, they try to dull it down, disguise their fear as wisdom, and sell you a smaller dream in the name of care. Chosen one, not every outstretched hand is meant to lift you. Some hands want to carve away your fire, bit by bit, until what's left is comfortable, predictable, manageable. They don't celebrate your power, they edit it. They offer you blueprints, but those blueprints are prisons dressed as advice. Their goal is not your liberation, but you. You didn't come this far to be shaped by small minds. You didn't endure storms just to hand over your wings to someone else's fear. Your blueprint was crafted in silence, under pressure, in moments no one else could see, and it is sacred. Protect it, guard it, like the priceless masterpiece it is. Refuse to be molded into anything less than everything you were created to become. The ones who truly support you won't try to draw smaller borders around your destiny. They'll hand you the pen and tell you to dream even bigger. Chosen one, you are not a project for others to complete. You are a force no one has the right to redesign. Number 4, protect your energy. Being accessible made you their convenience, not their priority. There was a time when your loyalty was mistaken for a free pass, when your endless availability made you the one they always called, always leaned on, always expected to show up, no questions asked. You thought you were building bonds, you thought you were proving your love, but the truth is, chosen one, you were being used as a convenience, not honored as a priority. They didn't value your presence, they consumed it. They didn't respect your sacrifices, they counted on them. Your kindness became their expectation, your willingness to be there became the cushion they took for granted. They loved having easy access to your energy, your time, your spirit, as long as it served their needs. But now, the door is no longer swinging wide open. Now, access to you comes with discernment, with standards, with boundaries forged from wisdom, not guilt. And suddenly, they call you distant. Suddenly, they accuse you of changing. But you didn't turn cold. You turned careful. You stopped bleeding yourself dry for people who wouldn't lift a finger when you were the one needing saving. Your energy is sacred. Your presence is not a public playground. And the real ones? They will honor the privilege of being near you. The others? They'll fade, just like they were meant to. Chaigaram, you're no longer anyone's emergency plan. You're your own priority now. And that shift? It terrifies the ones who only loved you when you were easy to use. Number 5, don't apologize for evolving. You were never meant to stay in their story. They wanted you to stay exactly where they left you. Predictable, manageable, easy to understand. They grew comfortable with the version of you who second-guessed your worth, who dimmed your light to fit their small world. They didn't expect you to evolve. They counted on you needing their validation forever. But the truth is, you were never created to live inside the cage of their comfort. You were born to outgrow every shallow role they tried to trap you in. You don't owe them an apology for becoming what you were always meant to be. Growth is not betrayal. Evolution is not rebellion. It's survival for the chosen. And when your wings finally broke through the ceilings they built over you, it exposed just how small their vision was. Not just of you, but of themselves. They whisper now that you've changed, trying to paint your progress as arrogance. But what really rattles them is that you didn't need their permission to elevate. You stopped asking for their approval and started answering a higher calling, a calling they were never invited to understand. You were never written to be a side character in their limited script. You were always meant to be the author of your own story. A story too bold, too brilliant, too free for their comfort zones. And now, the chapters you're writing without them feel like betrayal to their egos. But it's not betrayal, it's destiny. Never feel guilty for choosing expansion over comfort, growth over approval, evolution over permission. They don't hate that you moved on. They hate that you did it without looking back. Keep rising, chosen one. Their story was never your final destination. Number 6. See through fake support. Silent resentment always betrays itself. Not every hand that claps for you is clean. Some hands are clapping only loud enough to stay close. Close enough to claim a seat at your table, but far enough to hide the resentment brewing underneath. Chosen one, Understand this: fake support is louder when you're struggling, but eerily quiet when you start winning. They weren't clapping for your breakthrough, they were clapping for the hope that you might still need saving. They cheered just enough to seem loyal, but their hearts tensed every time you rose without asking for permission. The truth is, your elevation exposed something raw inside them, a bitterness they couldn't admit even to themselves. They wore smiles like masks, played the friend, spoke in half blessings, but silence reveals what applause can't hide. Watch closely. The ones who celebrated your struggle will grow silent at your success. You didn't lose them. You simply grew into a version of yourself their hidden envy couldn't stand beside. They weren't rooting for your flight. They were rooting for your dependency. And the second you stopped needing their scaffolding, the cracks showed. The backhanded jokes, the distant glances, the sudden absence when you no longer fit the image they were comfortable with. Chosen ones aren't built on public approval. They're built in the hidden places where truth can't be faked. Let them fall away. Let them reveal themselves without you lifting a finger. Silent resentment always betrays itself, and your light forces every hidden shadow to surface. Keep soaring. Real loyalty doesn't shrink when you shine, it rises with you. You weren't built to wait for their permission, you were designed to make them irrelevant. Your success is a living testament. No outside hand could ever hold what was crafted for more. You didn't need their validation to become unstoppable. You needed their doubt to sharpen your edge. Now, they watch from behind the walls they built to box you in. Walls you shattered, without even looking back. They weren't your gatekeepers. They were just bystanders to a journey they were never qualified to guide. And the farther you rise, the smaller they'll feel, because your destiny was never a vote they got to cast. You were always meant to outgrow the hands that tried to hold you small. Before we move forward, if your spirit feels the truth in these words, if deep inside you know you were never meant to be contained, I invite you to quietly affirm it below. Comment 999, not for applause, but as a personal sign that you are standing in your own light, unshaken and undeniable. No force can cage what was made to soar. Number 7. Panano silence. It wasn't fear, it was your greatest armor. They mistook your silence for weakness. They thought your quiet moments were signs of fear, hesitation, uncertainty. But what they never understood, what they still refuse to admit, is that your silence was never surrender. It was strategy. It was armor. In rooms filled with noise, boasting, and empty ambition, you learned the rarest and most dangerous skill of all: restraint. While they rushed to show their hand, you held your cards close. While they scrambled for validation, you fortified your spirit in secret. You understood something they didn't. Not every battlefield deserves your roar. Some victories are won by staying silent long enough to build a force they never saw coming. Your silence wasn't because you lacked a voice. It was because you were mastering the discipline of when to unleash it. Every moment you stayed quiet, you weren't losing ground. You were taking aim. And now, as you rise, as your steps shake the very foundations they thought were safe, they realize too late that the quiet one they overlooked was the very one carrying the power to remake the story. Your silence protected dreams they would have mocked. It shielded plans they would have stolen. It guarded the destiny they could never comprehend. They thought you were hiding. You were evolving. They thought you were doubting. You were sharpening. And now that your voice has found its moment, now that your presence can no longer be ignored, they stand exposed, not because you shouted them down, but because your silence made them reveal themselves. Remember this: for the chosen ones, silence is never weakness. It's the sound of storms gathering strength. Number 8. Don't stay broken to keep them comfortable. Healing is your true rebellion. There was a time when your brokenness made others feel powerful, when your wounds were convenient for them, when your struggles kept you small enough to manage, quiet enough not to shake their comfort zones. They liked you best when you were doubting yourself, when your pain muted your light just enough for them to stand taller beside you. But chosen one, hear this. You were never meant to stay shattered for the sake of their pride. Healing isn't betrayal, healing is rebellion. Your rising was never part of their plan. They were comfortable when you were stuck, safe when you were doubting, satisfied when you were surviving but not thriving. Because your weakness validated their hesitation. Your brokenness allowed them to feel whole without having to face their own fractures. But the moment you chose to heal, not halfway, not apologetically, but completely, you became a threat they couldn't control anymore. Your peace unnerves them now. Your boundaries insult them. Your light burns away every excuse they once used to stay stagnant. And instead of celebrating your freedom, they rewrite the story. They call you distant, cold, ungrateful, anything but what you truly are, free. But you didn't heal to fit back into their comfort. You healed to fulfill a calling bigger than their limited imagination. You refused to stay on your knees just because it made others feel taller. And now, the very ones who fed off your brokenness are haunted by the reality that they no longer have a place in your new life. Healing wasn't just survival. It was the greatest revenge you never had to announce. Number 9. Wear different like a crown. It's the badge of those they can't control. They called you different like it was an insult, like standing apart was something you should apologize for. But what they never realized was being different was never your flaw. It was your armor. It was your crown. They threw that word at you because deep down they couldn't shape you, predict you, or tame you. You didn't fit into the little boxes they built to feel powerful, so they labeled you. They tried to turn your light into a problem because your presence exposed everything they were too afraid to face within themselves. You didn't shrink when they whispered. You didn't bend when they doubted. You didn't play smaller to make their insecurities feel safe. And that's why you rattled the very ground they walked on. Understand this. Weak spirits can't stand next to an unshakable soul without feeling the cracks inside themselves. It's not your boldness that offends them, it's their own silence when you speak. It's not your clarity that's the problem, it's the mirror your life holds up to their hesitations. Chosen one, you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to unsettle, to shift atmospheres, to be the proof that courage still walks this earth. So wear different like the crown it is. Let it gleam so bright that it blinds every set of eyes that ever wished you would bow. Different isn't a weakness. It's the mark of those destined to lead, not follow. It's the badge of those who refuse to be owned, tamed, or forgotten. They couldn't break you, so they branded you. But now, you make different look like destiny. Because it is. Number 10. Starve their doubts. They studied your hunger only to fear your feast. They watched you from the very beginning, not with pure support, but with hidden calculation. They saw the hunger in your eyes, that fire that couldn't be faked. And instead of fueling it, they studied it like it was a threat. They smiled at your dreams while quietly doubting every step you would take. They weren't preparing to celebrate your feast. They were preparing to explain away your success when it finally came. They saw you aiming for heights they never dared to imagine for themselves. Instead of being inspired, they grew uncomfortable. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your ambition reminded them of every time they settled for less. Their advice sounded cautious, careful, realistic, but it was laced with fear. Fear that you would climb beyond their reach. They fed you crumbs of doubt, disguised as wisdom, hoping you would lower your sights, play smaller, move slower. They hoped you would second-guess the very calling that was placed inside of you. But what they didn't realize is that true hunger doesn't die. It refines. It grows sharper. It grows quieter. And by the time they realize you're no longer asking for permission, it's too late. You didn't just survive their doubt. You starved it. You didn't feed their fears. You starved their influence. You kept moving, building, becoming. Now your success isn't just a win. It's a revelation. A silent reminder that no amount of whispered fear could tame a spirit that was designed to feast. They studied your hunger, thinking they could control it. But the truth is, they just fed the fire they could never extinguish. Number 11. Escape. The survival trap. You were born to thrive, not just endure. They were comfortable when you were just surviving, when you were stuck in the endless cycle of scraping by, doubting yourself, questioning your worth. Survival made you predictable. Survival made you manageable. They knew how to reach you when you were desperate, how to offer you just enough to keep you tethered to the same small space. They never escaped from themselves. But you, chosen one, were never built to just endure. You were crafted to ascend, to move beyond the noise of mere existence and touch the higher places they never dared to climb. They cheered when you limped through battles, when you fought to stay afloat. But when you started moving like you were born for more, when you stopped asking for permission to rise, that's when the masks started slipping. Your success made them nervous, not because you hurt them, but because your elevation exposed their stagnation. Thriving demands a different spirit, one that refuses to live on scraps, one that stops applauding survival and starts celebrating unstoppable growth. You didn't betray anyone by choosing to break free from survival mode. You fulfilled a calling they were too afraid to answer themselves. They expected you to survive. They never prepared for you to dominate. Now, your thriving spirit is a threat to every lie they told themselves about staying small. And the beauty is, you don't have to explain it. Your existence, your glow, your unstoppable climb, it says everything without you having to say a word. Chosen ones, you were never meant to survive the storm just to live in it. You were born to command the skies beyond it. And you were never chosen by them. You were destined to outgrow them. They thought they had a say in your future. They thought their approval was the stamp you needed to step into your greatness. But the truth they can't swallow is, brutal, you were never chosen by them. You were never meant to fit into their shallow definitions, their limited expectations, or their narrow comfort zones. You were always destined to outgrow them, and that was written long before they ever spoke your name. They tried to hold the pen to your story, scribbling out limits disguised as advice, molding your dreams to fit inside their fears. But the script they were writing was too small for the destiny carved into your bones. You didn't just break away, you evolved beyond the space they built to contain you. And now, their anger, their confusion, their jealousy, it's all rooted in the same realization. They were never in control. They were never the ones who decided your worth, your rise, or your final form. You weren't built to wait for their permission. You were designed to make them irrelevant. Your success is a testament to the truth that no human hand can shape what was meant to stretch beyond human limits. You didn't need their validation to become unstoppable. You needed their doubt to sharpen your edge. Now they watch from behind the walls they built to box you in. Walls you shattered without even looking back. They weren't your gatekeepers. They were just bystanders to a journey they were never qualified to guide. And the farther you rise, the smaller they'll feel, because your destiny was never a vote they got to cast. You were always meant to outgrow the hands that tried to hold you small. As we come to the close of this chapter, remember, your journey was never about earning their approval. It was about realizing you never needed it to begin with. Every step you take beyond their expectations is a step deeper into your true purpose. Keep rising, keep evolving, and let your light be the answer to every doubt ever cast your way. If this message spoke to something powerful within you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay connected to this journey of truth, strength, and unstoppable elevation.